Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our Saturday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहनावतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 So in this class we are studying Vivekachudamani, written by Adi Shankaracharya ji. And we are on the verse number 365, which says, Shrute Shat Gunam Vidyat Mananam Mananat Api Nididhyasam Laksh Gunam Anantam Nirvikalpanam. Shrute, listening, or to listen. Shat Gunam, 100 times superior. Shat means 100, Gun means it's a superior, it's better quality. Vidyat should be considered. Mananam, reflection. Mananat, to reflection. Api means also. Nididhyasam, meditation, practice. Laksh Gunam, 100,000 times superior. Laksh Gunam. Anantam, infinitely. Nirvikalpanam, the nirvikalpa Samadhi. Because he has been talking about all this. Shravan Mana Nididhyasan. So now he is telling us how important these are. Reflection should be considered 100 times superior to listening. So listening is important, but reflection on what we heard is 100 times, he says, more important. And meditation 100,000 times superior to reflection. But nirvikalpa Samadhi is infinitely more sacred. Because we all know knowledge can be obtained by listening to a guru or reading books. So listening is also, Shravan, reading the book is also a method of listening to acquire knowledge. So whether you read it on your own or whether you listen, it's the same thing. But when a person reflects upon it, because there's so much knowledge got gathered from a teacher or from a book, understanding of that knowledge is 100 times more powerful. Okay, so make sure that you reflect upon what you read or what you hear. Don't just only listen and then forget about it. Reflect upon it. But if the seeker starts meditating upon the knowledge which was required or came from the reflection, the sharpness of his understanding becomes 100,000 times more effective. Try to practice it. Meditate on it. Because in meditation, what are we doing? We are quietening our mind. And in that quietness of the mind, that knowledge really takes the roots, moves upward. And the stage comes when you're in a dynamic state of thoughtless, stillness. So thoughts subside, and that is called the nirvikalpa condition. Nirvin means no, vikalpa means thoughts, thoughtlessness. Then your knowledge becomes infinite. So this is a result of your continuous meditation, abhyas, sadhana, when you dissolve your ego into complete silence. And where is it absorbing? Into that infinite consciousness. So that's why it's called Samadhi, nirvikalpa Samadhi. So reflection should be considered 100 times superior to listening. Meditation 100,000 times superior to reflection, but nirvikalpa is infinitely more sacred. Okay, so he's just giving us the ladder of evolvement over here. Now let's move on to the next one. Nirvikalpa samadhinaha sufutam Brahm tattvam avgamyate dhruvam na anyatha chalyataha manogate prayatye antra vimishritam bhavet. Nirvikalpa samadhina. By nirvikalpa samadhi. So by now you are used to this term. He has been using it all along now. So futam, clearly. Brahm tattvam. The true nature of Brahm. Brahm tattvam. Avgamyate is known. Dhruvam, definitely. Na anyatha, never otherwise. Chalyata, by the unsteadiness. Manogate, of the mind. Prayate antra vimishritam, mixed with other perceptions. Bhavet, become. By nirvikalpa samadhi, the true nature of Brahm is clearly and definitely manifest. Never otherwise. For then the mind being unsteady is apt to be mixed with other perceptions. So that means if you have not reached the nirvikalpa samadhi, there are a lot of other thoughts which are coming. They could be sattvic thoughts, but still there is a mixture. It's not all pure. Okay? Thoughts like, which form of God is better? Even though you're thinking about God, but still your mind is still thinking about something. But nirvikalpa samadhi, Brahm is clearly and definitely manifest. Like a God and God alone. So that's why he's saying that in the condition of nirvikalpa samadhi alone can this great reality be apprehended with certainty. Otherwise, there's always a chance of some kind of a doubt. So it's like 100%. So Shankaracharya ji very positively declaring that never by any other method, and what is the method? Bringing the mind to stillness is the only method. Bringing the mind to that complete quietness is the method, and that is nirvikalpa samadhi. You can use any way to quieten the mind because there are many methods. Bhagavad Gita talks about many methods. Shankaracharya ji has given many methods too. And what are these methods? The method could be through devotion, bhakti yoga. It could be through knowledge, jnana yoga, or it could be karam yoga, or even through pranayama, Rishi Patanjali talks about. But quietening of the mind, this is what we need. Cleaning the mind, quietening the mind, and just make sure that there is no vikalpa left in the mind. So that is a must. Urmil is asking which verse. In my book, it's 366. Yours could be 365 or 367. I don't know which book you have. Okay. So the mind's nature is to be stay active. because it's not a mind. What is the definition of a mind? Flow of thoughts is the mind. If there's no thought and thought is not flowing, it's not a mind. So that's why it is impossible to realize the changeless self with the mind, which is very unstable. That's why he used the word na anyatha chalte ha manogate. Whenever you try to grasp anything through the mind and the intellect, the object of knowledge gets entangled in your own thought patterns. And that is the vikalpa. And our Shuddha Buddha Atma can never be understood if there are fluctuations in the mind. You could be thinking about a Saguna Brahma, but that Saguna itself keeps on putting the fluctuations. So over here, he is talking about Nirguna Brahma. When the mind ends, you just become it. That is a nirvikalpa samadhi. So as long as you look at it through the mind, it's only the conditioned, the limits. Okay, there's always some kind of a thought flow. So he says, still your mind. Let's look at next one. Ataha smadhastva yatendriya san nirantaram shantmana pratichihi vidvansyahe dhyavanantam anadiya vidyaha kritam sad ek tva viloknen. Ataha, therefore, smadhasva, that is a samadhi, like a drown your mind into that full absorption. Yat indriya san, being one who has controlled the senses, yat indriya. Nirantaram, always, shantmanaha, peaceful in mind, pratichihi, in the innermost, pratichi, innermost self. Vidvanse, destroy, dhvanantam, darkness. So we are destroying the darkness. Anadi avidya, by the beginningless ignorance. Kritam, created. Sad ektva vilokanen, by realizing your identity with the reality. So oneness of the Atma with Brahman. He says, therefore, with a serene mind. And the sense is controlled. Ever drown the mind in the subjective supreme self. Because you wonder, what should I do with the mind? It's so powerful. Okay? Drown it in the subjective supreme self. And by realizing your identity with that reality, destroy the darkness created by the beginningless avidya. Okay? So when the mind is controlled, the sense organs are automatically controlled actually. Without controlling the sense organs, mind cannot be controlled. They go hand in hand. And only then the mind becomes tranquil. Normally what happens, our mind is subjected to two types of disturbances. It's almost like if I'm sitting inside my house, either somebody can call me from outside, ring the doorbell, disturb me from outside, or I can get disturbed something from inside. The same thing happens with the mind. Two types of disturbance. And philosophically, they are called subjective and objective disturbances. And right now, at this moment, our mind is subject to both of these disturbances because we haven't done enough sadhana. Objective disturbances are brought in by the sense organs. Eyes see something, there's a disturbance in the mind. It could be a good disturbance or not so good disturbance. Ears, they hear something. Nose smells something, and the mind gets disturbed. That is called the objective disturbance. And what is a subjective disturbance? The vasanas, we are already inside us, in our chitta. So those vasanas, they create the disturbance in our mind. That's why we have to re-educate our intellect to think in the right direction. That's why the Shruti is important. Manan is important. So subjective disturbance and objective disturbance. When both of these disturbances are not affecting the mind is quiet. With this quiet mind, this great Acharya is telling us, drown your mind into the chambers of that quietness and remain alert for this experience. What is this experience? Dynamic silence, the divinity at all times, which you are, because you have forgotten it. And when this reality is apprehended, the avidya, the darkness, the ignorance gets totally annihilated. The non-apprehension goes away. So that's why he keeps on emphasizing that start controlling the mind and the sense organs. Okay, that's where we start. Start from the grocer. And then you will see that. Otherwise, if sitting in the dark and you want to just get rid of the darkness with a stick, you can't. Just use the proper tools to get rid of this avidya, the ignorance. And ignorance is not knowing yourself, who you are. This is the biggest ignorance. Now in the next verse, he's telling us step by step, what do we need to do? Yogasya pratham dwaram vang nirodha aparigraha nirashaha cha niriha cha nityam ekant shilata. It's a rather simple verse for us because we have studied the Yoga Sutras also, Bhagavad Gita also. So the similar kind of terminology here too. Yogasya, of yoga. Pratham dwaram, the first gateway. Vang nirodha, control of speech. Aparigraha, non-possessiveness. Non-holding. Nirashaha, freedom from expectations. Cha means and, nireha, freedom from activity. Cha means and, nityam, always ekanta shilata, living in a retired mood. Alone, aloneness. The first gateway of yoga consists of control of speech, non-possessiveness or acceptance of possessions, non-entertainment of expectations, freedom from activity, and living always in a retired mood. We got to understand this philosophically, because some of these messages, you cannot take it literally. You'll get confused. We saw in the previous verse, control of the sense organs and the mind have been advised. So now over here, he is giving us more hints. Steps to control the wild sense organs. These are almost like wild horses. And also the restless mind. In the scriptures, they say that these Sense organs are like wild horses, and this mind is a monkey mind, or even a monkey mind. They say it's a drunkard monkey mind. But over here, this great Acharya is telling us, showing us how we can control this monkey mind also, and the wild horses also. So to enter into they call it a hall of yoga or the palace of yoga. And the Pratham Dwar, the very first gate is, or the gateway is control of the speech. It does not mean no speaking. It really means control the functions of all your organs of actions. It's not just only speech. Sure, we need to speak truthfully, beneficially, honestly, but at the same time, our other organ actions should be controlled too. Okay, so all karmendriya, they are the gateway to this yogic life. Then second thing he says, non-possessiveness. Normally we think that more we have, more happy we will be. And I'm talking about these objects of the outer world. This idea has to be eradicated from our mind. Otherwise, these objects, they start possessing us. There's nothing wrong in possessing things, but they should not be in our mind. Leave the outer objects in the outer world, not in your inner housing. So that's what it means. Don't have a sense of ownership. Remember that na idam mama, nothing is mine. Nothing is mine. Sure, it has been given to me. I'm thankful to God. And objects really means this body also. Okay? Not just the house and the cars and the gems and the money and the people, the relationships, everything, including my own body. Have that kind of a feeling. Be grateful, use it for a higher purpose, but don't have the mind gets drawn towards the possessiveness. Keep it away from that. And nirasha, without any expectations. What does that mean philosophically? That means the thoughts of the enjoyment of the fruits of our actions in a future period of time have to be given up. Live in the now. Asha is always in the future time. If you keep your mind in the future, oh, weekend will come, I'll enjoy. Enjoy this moment. Do what needs to be done. Do not take your mind into the future. Nirasha. Otherwise, you have lost your mind. The minute you let go of the control of your mind, it's not just the weekend, it will go to a lot of other places too. It is so powerful. That's why it's called drunkard monkey. Some people even say not just a drunkard monkey, it's a drunkard monkey who has been bitten by a scorpion. Then you can see that how much agitation in that mind. And that's how our mind acts. And niriha. Niriha means giving up of all egocentric activities. He's not saying that don't do anything, but egocentric activities. Okay, like I am doing it. Okay, so we got to understand that who is doing it? Prakriti is doing it in my body. Body is full of Prakriti portion in there. So niriha, giving up all egocentric activity. And nityam ekantashilata, cultivate the habit of being alone constantly. Remember, aloneness is different from loneliness. You can remain lonely at a place when there is nobody else. But you can be, even in the middle of the crowd, you can be alone. So he's talking about aloneness, not loneliness. All alone is Brahma, the one without a second. Aloneness is not in the surroundings, but it is a person's attitude within the heart. And that's why it's also called ek antam, to remain with one end or goal. So that means keeping all your attention upon that one goal. So cultivate the habit of constantly remaining alone, even a busy place. This is what we need to cultivate it. So in order to reach Samadhi, the kind of a Samadhi which he is talking about, nirvikalpa Samadhi, learn to sit down at least a few minutes a day. Because what he is talking about, this is the goal. But in order to reach the goal, we got to start somewhere. So start with at least 10-15 minutes, sit down every day without any activity. At least that period of time, no activity in your mind. Physical or mental. Without any expectations of possible enjoyment. I'm meditating and my blood pressure will become down. Or this will happen or that will happen. Nothing, no expectations at all. For at least start with 15 minutes a day. With the firm understanding that objects around you, including your own body, can never give you happiness. Just those 15 minutes. Constantly keep up the habit of remaining alone, remembering him, Brahma, God, with nothing else in the mind. Try it. See how good it feels. The alone mind alone can move to truth, which is always alone. Remember that. Let me repeat it again. The alone mind alone can move to truth, which is always alone. That's why it's called Kevalya. Only. Nothing else. So we got to practice for that. And that's what he's telling us in this beautiful verse. He has given us what we need to do step by step. Now let's look at next verse. एकांत स्थिति इंद्रिये उपरमने हेतु दमः चेतसः समरोधे कर्णम शमेन विल्यम या यात अहम वासनः तेन आनंद रस अनुभूति अचलः ब्राह्मी सदा योगिना तस्मात् चेत निरोधा एव सततम कार्यः प्रत्यनात् मुने. एकांत स्थिति, living in solitude. Indriye upramne, to control the sense organs. Hetu, helpful. Dam, sense control. Chetasa, of the mind. Samrodhe, to control. Karanam means shamen, the control of mind. Vilayam yayat, goes to dissolution. Vilay, gets dissolved. Aham vasana, the ego. Ten means by that. Anand ras anubhuti, the experience of the essence of bliss absolute. Anand ras anubhuti. Achala, unbroken. Brahmi, of Brahma. Sada, always. Yogina, for the yogis. Tasmat, therefore, chit nirodhaha, restraint of mind. Ev means alone, satatam, constantly. Karya should be practiced. Prayatanat, carefully. Mune, for the Muni. And who's the Muni? The man of reflection. Mananashil, that's a Muni. Living in solitude helps to control the sense organs. Control of the senses serves to control the mind. And by controlling the mind, the ego is destroyed. This gives the yogi an absolute realization of the bliss of Brahman. Hence, the man of reflection should always strive to quieten his mind alone. Okay, so again, he's telling us, what do we need to do? Are we doing this more and more? Or are we just running into this world mindlessly? Where we don't need to go, we go. What we don't need to do, we do. And then we wonder why there's no peacefulness inside us. So control of the mind leads to self-realization in stages though. It will not happen all of a sudden. We just wonder that why somebody has it and we don't. Because they did the work on it. They did the sadhana. It is not a magic. And there's no partiality towards some and not towards others. Same rules apply for everybody. The progress is step by step, stage by stage. And these stages, they take us from one ladder to the other ladder until we reach the final stage of self-realization. And these are the stages explained in this verse. So when you practice keeping your mind in continuous contemplation upon the reality, ekanta sthiti, is your mind just keep on wandering outside, or can it come to that Brahma more and more? Do you have that kind of a control on your mind or not? That is ekanta sthiti. So that means if you have attained that ekanta sthiti, your sense organs are in your control. Indriya parnam. The senses retire very easily. They will stop running into the outer world. And mind is constantly dedicated to the contemplation of Brahman. And what is that Brahman? That is the Anand. That is the joyous state. Otherwise, the senses want to go out to get some kind of a happiness, but we all know that happiness is fleeting. That happiness is only as long we have that thing, or as long as we enjoy that thing. Sometimes we get tired of that thing too. But this mind will retire when it finds that ultimate happiness, joyous state. So control of the sense organs and the control of the mind are mutual actually. Which one starts first? Okay, sometimes we got to use our mind. Sometimes we got to make sure that we control the senses. One controlled, the other will get the benefit. So that means control of the one leads to the control of the other. And that's what's called chetas, the word which Shankaracharya ji used, chetas. Because uncontrolled mind is always in a state of agitation. Always uncontrolled mind. And that's how this ego keeps on erupting. And the ego is well controlled because of its dedication to the higher ideal. And the mind naturally becomes quiet. It's almost like in the front of our Guru, in front of some holy place, holy person. We find quietness. And over here, you have given your ego to something higher. With your sadhana, it becomes quiet. That's how the vasanas of our chit get destroyed. They get cleansed. So control of the mind means reduction of desires, guys. Remember that. Those desires just keep on, it's almost like chopping a tree down. And when the desires have reduced, vasanas get annihilated. And when the ego has surrendered, the realization of the bliss of Brahma is right there in front of us. That is also called a state of a Brahmic consciousness. And that is the real essence. That is the unbroken bliss absolute. So that's why he's saying the man of reflection. A person who has already listened to his teacher, the Guru, reflected upon those ideas which he heard, must control the mind after that. Nididhyasana. Let's do one more verse. Vacham niyach atmanihitam niyach buddhau dhiyam yach cha buddhi sakshane tam cha api purna atmani nirvikalpe vilapye shantim parmam bhajasva. Vacham, the speech. Niyach, restrain. Atmani, in the mind. Tam means that. Over here, that means that mind. Niyach, restrain. Buddhau, in the intellect. Dhiyam, the intellect. Yach means restrain. Cha means and. Buddhi sakshani, in the witness of the intellect. Tam means that. Cha api, and also. Puran atmani, the infinite self. Nirvikalpe, the non-dual. Vilapye, merging. Shantim, peace. Paramam, supreme. Bhajasva, attain. He says, restrain speech in the mind. Restrain the mind in the intellect. And this again, restrain in the witness of the intellect. And merging that two in the infinite absolute self, gain supreme peace. We all know how to unfold ourselves. That means how to go outside. We all know that. We've been doing it. Not just this lifetime around, before also. We have moved away from our real essence. Now he's telling us how to go back. You know how to unfold, but do you know how to go back? This is what he's telling us. Because in all our activities, arrogantly, we just use this body, not just the body outside what we have attained, our name and the fame, that is going outward. Getting the objects, how to indulge in them. We have done very well. But we have not found the bliss there. We have not found the peace there. If you want to find the eternal peace, If you want to become one with him, then he says, do this. Otherwise, the moment desire gets fulfilled, another desire erupts. From one desire to the next desire to the next desire. That has been the story of our life. This is also called an extroverted life. Now he's telling us, how can we pull ourselves back to the center, towards the peaceful self? And these are the stages he's giving us. These are the similar stages in the Hatha Yoga when we do, whether it's a meditation based on the koshas or the meditation based upon the chakras, the same thing. Over here, he's telling us that fold back the speech into the mind. So that means, again, the speech means all the action organs. Disidentify from them at least 10-15 minutes a day. And then fold the mind into the intellect. Because intellect is higher than the mind, subtler than the mind. And then from there, go into your Atma. So from the grosser to the subtler. We've been going from the subtler to the grosser, and we have forgotten about the subtle. We have forgotten who we are in this busy rat race of our life. So few minutes a day, just move inward. So remember, speech means all the external activities also, all these action organs also. Okay, so just stop that. That's why sometimes people say, during my meditation, should I say some mantra? I say no. Eventually, when you're meditating, mantra should be stopped. In the beginning, sure, if you're sitting down and your mind is not becoming still, sure, you can say the mantra, but do not rely upon that. And definitely not the outer noise. It could be any kind of a music, just turn that off. No dependency on anything. So the mental activity should be held quiet. And then intellect also, just have a hush on that intellect too. Because you got to learn how to transcend your intellect also. Otherwise, it will keep on giving you ideas. That's where ideas are coming from, intellect. You got to just, for those minutes of your meditation, just stop that. You don't need new values. You don't need any kind of ideas at that time. You are doing this for the stillness. Make yourself only a witness to the various agitations of the intellect. Something is happening, remind yourself, I'm only witnessing it. I am not the intellect. If there's a scratch in the body, only be the witness. You are not the body. When you refuse to identify with the thoughts or the desires or any kind of activity, naturally you will see that all of that will die away. Because continuously you are telling, you know that you are the witness. And everything else will become weaker. You are not giving energy to that. And this is what is called buddhi sakshi. Remaining as a witness to what is going on, even to the buddhi too. Because you are not the buddhi. So that's how the thoughts, they become less and less. And the intellect also merges in the witness. And it gets hushed quietly. And when the last thought is also ended, there's no object for the witness to watch. The witnesshood of the witness ends. And that is what the ego ends. There's nothing to be watched. It's only the purity, Shant Atma, Shuddha Atma. That's all it is. So let me read it again, just to make sure that everything has been covered up. Restrain speech in the mind. Restrain the mind in the intellect. And this again, restrain in the witness of the intellect. And merging that too in the infinite absolute self, gain supreme peace. Beautiful flow chart he is giving it to us. These rishis, they have written these books like textbooks for us. But we have to practice it though. They cannot practice it for us. We have to do all the practice. But again and again, he is telling us in today's, all the verses we covered, how beautifully and how completely he is telling us what do we need to do. So now let's end the class here today, and then we'll pick up from verse number 371 next week. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for coming.